Mr. Jethmalani, none of this has anything to do with the case at hand. The Gujarat Home Minister running from the CBI. My question is very simple, and I want to put this to Jai Narayan Vyas. The Supreme Court said about the Gujarat Police's investigation that the Gujarat Police failed to carry out a fair and impartial investigation. So the Gujarat government was given a chance to demonstrate its bona fides, Mr. Jethmalani. They failed in that endeavour, leaving the Supreme Court with no option but to give this case to the CBI to investigate.
Now look, sir, if you want to get into the Supreme Court judgment, let me tell you something. The Supreme Court has been monitoring this case for well nigh 3 years now, 2007 to 2010. If the Supreme Court, and I speak with the greatest respect to the Supreme Court, for 3 years they ought to have found out, and this is the reason why they ultimately transferred the case to the CBI in January 2010. According to them, the highest police officials in the state of Gujarat were involved, and in the interest of public perception of justice being done, it is necessary to transfer the investigation from the Gujarat police to the CBI. Remember, the Gujarat police had been carefully chosen by the Supreme Court itself, the members of the Gujarat police force that investigated the murder of Sohrabuddin. Remember. Yet after 3 years, on a ground which was available to them in 2007 itself, the Supreme Court said, we are transferring this investigation for in 2010 to the CBI. They were monitoring the investigation for 3 years. Why didn't they do it before? I have to ask the Supreme Court this question. That's an issue we will raise. And by the way,
Mr. Jethmalani, the very fact...
You know, you're loading these terms.
Mr. Jethmalani, the very fact that the Supreme Court shifted this case to the CBI cannot be seen as a vote of confidence for the Gujarat police. Or is that your case? The very fact that the case was transferred to the CBI by the Supreme Court
is wrong.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Listen, the Supreme Court is not final because it is right. Occasionally the Supreme Court also errs. It is right because it is final. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had the press roundly criticizing Justice Ahmadi for putting a judicial imprimatur on the Congress's sins regarding Warren Anderson off way back in 1985. Everybody criticizes Justice Ahmadi for putting a judicial imprimatur which allowed him to stay away from this country, isn't it? So occasionally courts go wrong. And I venture to state that the transfer of this matter to the CBI was both contrary to law and on facts which were available in 2007, and there was no, if they needed to do it,
you should have taken up with the Supreme Court. You're putting out a case now, Mr. Jethmalani, on TV. If you were so strong in your convictions, you should have fought this in the Supreme Court and got their order overturned.
Rahul, we have not had an opportunity before the Supreme Court yet. The arrest of Mr. Amit Shah, on whose behalf we may appear, I don't know. I mean, he may not be a dodgy enough client for me. If we do appear before the Supreme Court, certainly we haven't had an opportunity to put our case. We certainly will when our time comes, that why was the CBI necessary? It was done at the prompting of Mr. Gopal Subramaniam, the Solicitor General, who claimed to be acting for the state of, he claimed to be acting in an independent capacity, but in fact, pursued and implemented the objectives of the Congress party. And I want to repeat, I just want to correct you on one thing. Both you and Mr. Manishankar Iyer are repeatedly saying hiding. When you avail of a facility afforded by law, you are not running away from the law, you are using it to buttress your case. If an anticipatory bail is rejected ultimately, unlike a Congress minister in the state of Maharashtra, he will go and face the CBI.